Welcome. It has just gone 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, the 19th of March, and you're watching episode 164 of Regional Wrap. Regional Wrap providing insight of the issues affecting regional Australia and giving a voice to regional residents. My name is Bill Bates, and joining me on this episode, Dams and Dam Stubbornness, is my guest Dick Cerny. Dick is a civil, structural and hydraulic engineer of 5 decades experience. He was a graduate of the University of Tasmania and started his career with Scott and Furphy, a firm of consulting engineers that was later absorbed by the global enterprise GHD. He soon moved to Canada, working on heavy civil engineering dam, tunnel, powerhouse, bridge and road projects. Dick later joined the Canadian Matthews Group and went on to become the president of Matthews Contracting Incorporated. Their construction division was based in Ontario, with branches in all Canadian provinces west of Quebec, as well as in Texas, Egypt and Kuwait. He later worked for Matthews Southwest in Texas, working also in Alberta and back in Toronto on the design and build of large office, residential and manufacturing complexes. On returning to Australia, Dick moved to Townsville and worked for Waters Matters Alliance and TCS Civil and Building, and later independently with an Open Queensland Building and Construction Commission builder's licence on various projects. During his career, Dick also worked on hotel, high-rise apartments, office, retail and institutional projects, while later Australian projects included the design and build of the Townsville Civic Centre extension and the Townsville Fire Arena, together with the design and build of the World War II Defence of Darwin Museum, which won the Northern Territory Engineering Excellence Award in 2012. Welcome, Dick.
G'day, Bill.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Your little town down there is trying to become part of the wet tropics in this last month or so, out doing Cairns with its rainfall by 1,000 odd millimetres. How are you faring?
We had 301 millimetres of rain last night, so yeah, it's very wet. But
it's quite surprising in regards to how quickly some of the areas get inundated now. I mean, the February and early March rainfalls were pretty horrific, but this one last night, it just came as a bit of a surprise, and everyone woke up to it in the morning.
Yeah, that's the way it's going to be now with global warming. We just won't know. The moist air from one side will be hit by the cooler air from the other side, and you got it. And that's what's happening with all the weather fronts. They're all slowing. So when they slow, you have more rain or you have more heat, and that's a problem.
I think it's shown lately with a number of our cyclones that we've had in the last 12 months or so. The trailing rain's been a greater event than the cyclone wind itself, and quite a few of them over the last few years even have trailed all the way down, a little bit like Alfred, trailed down to the southeast and northern New South Wales and given places like Lismore a pretty big hiding as well.
That's right. And
go ahead.
Go ahead.
But one thing it does do is gives us plenty of rain for our dams.
Well, interesting here that most of the water landed on the coast side of the Great Divide, and so not much water went inland, and it was sort of funny. The rainfall we had about 2 weeks ago, it was mainly on the coastal area, and a little bit of it intensely got into the Burdekin catchment area, And in 40 hours, just 40 hours, the Burdekin Dam overflowed over the spillway, which is 504 meters wide by 4.8 meters deep. It was flowing at
above the wall.
about 80% of the volume of the dam every day. $44 million worth of electricity a day was wasted. But it doesn't last very long. It lasts about 4 days, and then it drops right off again. But anyway, there's no power station there, which we're trying to get them to build. But if they had have had a power station this year, they have 16 million megaliters of water go over the dam. That's over $47 million worth of, sorry, that's over $470 million worth of electricity at $120 a kilowatt hour. Now, normally in the peaks, if you look at the peaks, the average peaks is close to $200 a megawatt hour. So, you know, they would have done pretty good out of it. And that is only for about 20 days. And then after that, if the pumped hydro was there, they could have pumped hydro generating 3,000 megawatts of electricity every day for 8 hours or 7 hours to provide all the nighttime energy and the peak energy that's needed in northern Queensland.
I think that's interesting that the people who designed the dam way back in the, I suppose they would have started in the late 70s because it was completed by 86, and it usually takes a fair while to build a dam. They had the forethought to, well, we'll build it at stage one to meet the initial requirements and for the next few decades. But they also designed it so it could be have a stage two to extend its life and productivity as North Queensland grew. And so the original stage two that was devised, it was designed to increase the wall height by 14.6 metres with a big spillway. And there was always a provision for a hydro plant within that design as well. I think the original design, because of, I suppose, the technology of the day, they sort of rated it about half a gigawatt, 500 megawatts. But I think with the way things are developed and that, just standing still without any pumped hydro and that, it probably could be a 1 gigawatt hydro dam anyway.
Now, interestingly, Snowy designed the dam, and they looked at phase two, and as you say, it's 14.6 meters extra height, controlled by radial gates, but and that's 500 megawatt power station, but they also had a provision for 1,000 megawatt pumped hydro scheme. Now, their pumped hydro scheme back in 1985 would have had to have pumps and generators. So it was a bigger scheme. But nowadays we have developed Francis turbines that can act as a pump and as a generator. So all you do is you just change the excitation of the motor, and it becomes a pump, and it's 91% efficient, or you can change it again and it acts like a generator and it's 91% efficient as well. So now we figure that we could go 3,000 megawatts of pumped hydro, because it's the one unit. So we end up with 8 Francis turbines, or Joule Francis turbines, and we get 3,000 megawatts. 3 times.
So within that, the water is not just solely there for the electricity production, but the water can also be allocated to farming and stuff like that as well if the wall goes up.
Yeah, and you're right. There's, for sure, you got to accommodate all the irrigation, but all the power all the water that you release to the irrigators generates power. And it also generates power in the Blue Valley Dam, which you need as a secondary storage, so you can pump from the Blue Valley Dam back up to the Lake Dalrymple during the day when there's surplus solar, and then at night you let it go down. So the irrigated water generates electricity. At the moment, it doesn't do anything. It also, the environmentalists are upset because they would like to have a release of a lot of water at one time. Okay, so they drop a slug of water through the river system to sort of emulate what it used to be like. But now, instead of losing that slug, we can generate electricity. So we can decide when it's the best time to send a whole slug of water down the river and generate peak revenue generating electricity, at the peak time. And so it's a good scheme. It works.
Well, I'll just put up a screenshot just of the location of Lake Dalrymple so people realise where we're talking about. So up on your screen now, you've got Townsville to the north, and basically Lake Dalrymple is straight south of that. And obviously the Burdekin River runs out somewhere near Bowen out here.
Yeah.
So just zooming in on that.
So just right now where you are at the top right-hand corner of your screen, well, go back a bit more. You're looking at the dam, but if you go down, if you zoom out a little bit more, can you zoom out? Anyway,
Yep.
It's just a bit more on the right-hand side of your screen. Yeah, back a bit.
Up here, there's
just there. Okay, right there.
That's the fork of the Bowen.
That's the Bowen River there. So the Blue Valley Dam is just below the confluence of them, just where you had your hand before, just there, just past where the two join. Now that's the Blue Valley Dam. It won't have to be a high dam. It will be a long dam. It'll be about 3 kilometers long, and you need it.
Is it on this side of the?
Yeah, that's right.
On the Burdekin River.
Yeah, just about there. Just where that's a rock outcrop, and it'd go on that rock outcrop. And then the dam.
What's the flood area would be? What would the flood area of that be?
It's 122 square kilometers, and 122 square kilometers at a 1 meter depth of water will give you enough water to to pump up in a 3,000 megawatt pumped hydro scheme in 8 hours. So actually 7.5 hours. So during the day, when you have a lot of solar, you take the surplus solar and you pump water back up into Lake Dalrymple. And then at night or at peaks, you let the water through the turbines and you provide all the night power and peak power that you need for northern Queensland.
So
And it works good.
What we call the Blue Valley Dam would just basically be a weir of some description. It wouldn't be a monumental structure.
Oh, it's pretty big. Like it'll cost a couple of billion to build, and it has a generating station too on it. So it has two turbines, Francis turbines, and they are each 375 megawatt. So you get 750 megawatts out of that plant. The water that comes down the Bowen River is about 25% of the water that comes down the Burdekin River, and it comes at a different time. So you have a different source of water, and instead of capturing 80% of the Burdekin flow, you now capture 98% of the Burdekin flow, and yeah, it helps. It works financially. It works very well. The scheme has no tunnels. The biggest problem, like the government started to build Snowy 2.0, and they first thought it was going to be 2 billion. Then when they did their initial designs and they came out with their decision to go ahead on the 21st of December in 2019, just before Christmas, so that no one would be upset that it went from 2 billion to 4.6 billion. And then they went ahead with it. But and we told them, like, the dam had 25 kilometers of tunnel. Now, when you have, and it's something like 730 meters of head, and because there's such a long tunnel, you have to accelerate the tunnel water to 22 kilometers an hour before you can turn the generators on. So this big slug of water is wasted while it's getting up to 22 kilometers an hour. And then when it's at 22, you turn the electricity, you turn that generator on and you can start generating electricity. When you want to stop, you have to slow the water down. Now, you can't generate electricity while you're slowing the water down, but you need the electricity to slow it down, to act as a brake. So all that water starting and stopping each day is the same amount of, uses the same amount of power as Tumut 2 power station in the Snowy Mountains. Now, when we complained to the powers that be, GHD, they decided that they would go with synchronous generators. And then we said, whoa, synchronous generators will allow you to generate power while you're accelerating the water flow, but it causes transients in the transmission lines, and those transients will blow up transformers in about 3 years. So they've modified it now, and they have three synchronous generators and they have 3 normal generators. And I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll see. It'll
That's if they ever dig out Florence.
sorry?
That's if they ever dig Florence out. I think Florence is still
Yeah,
stuck somewhere.
Florence is going, but
Yeah.
they tell me, like I'm told, that they have to still go through a zone of asbestos rock, and it'll be interesting when they get the asbestos rock.
Okay. Well, back to the Burdekin Dam. I mean, we have another issue in regards to the Sunwater wants to add 2 meters onto the top as a project. And I've talked to some people down Townsville, and they've indicated if they build the 2 meters on top of the current dam, that will prevent the dam from being redone to get up to the 14 meters. So is that your assessment as well? This 2 meter addition that they're planning to do will sort of stifle everything?
Well, what they're doing is they are going to put 2 meters of concrete on the top of the spillway, just the spillway section. All the other dams and the abutments and that, they have to raise 8 meters. So they're increasing the throat of the spillway from the 14.6 meters that it used to be to 20.6 meters now. So it's going to be 20.6 meters deep, a slug of water going through there in the once in 10,000 year flood. So that volume of water is 115 cubic meters a second. Now, the original dam was designed for 64,600 cumex, and because of global warming and that, we now have to increase it by nearly double to, they say, 115,000 cumex. Other people have worked on what the maximum flow is, and they were at 170,000. We carried in our designs 136,000 cumex, but it's still a huge volume of water. Wow.
Yeah, but no project is really going ahead at the moment. We sort of haven't got any tick in the box or anything to go ahead, have we?
Well, the project is going ahead. They're going ahead, and they are going to increase the storage by 31%. It's going to cost them $1.8 billion plus, and it's going to take them years. They promised originally it would be complete by 2030, and now they've extended it to 2035. But anytime now, the existing dam could fail. Interestingly, if you look at Sunwater's risk analysis, you Google Sunwater's risk analysis, it'll come up and you can read the risk analysis for the Burdekin Dam. If the Burdekin Dam gets water to above 160.85 meters, they have to go to orange danger level, and they have to abide by a whole bunch of procedures. Tell the mayor of Burdekin Shire has to tell everyone in the Shire that they have to be on standby to evacuate, because some of the blocks may move or tip, and the orange level starts at 160.85. This year, about 2 weeks ago, or on February the 11th, the water level got to 160.701. So just 150 millimeters shy of the orange stress level. It's touch and go. If the rain had have been more on the other side of the Great Divide, wow, it would have been interesting. Anyway, they
So exactly how sort of precarious is the situation, and what sort of standards and what things need to be done to ensure its safety?
well, the dam has to withstand what the Queensland government determines is a adequate risk. Like, they can't stop it from some biblical flood, but they have to go to a 1 in 10,000 year flood or something that just isn't going to happen. And and picking that number is difficult. Everyone, because it's a sort of guessing game, and especially with global warming now, with the slowing of the weather fronts and that, we're getting biblical volumes of water coming down everywhere. I mean, you can see it. So they have to change the design of the dam to bring it up to the revised ANCOLD standards, and they promised that they would do it by 2030, but they've now extended that to 2035. But it nearly got, like 2 weeks ago, it was within 6 inches of being orange alert level. Wow.
So as we go forward, what's the sort of remedial work that would have to be done to sort of ensure the standard was
Well, what Sunwaters is going to do, is they're going to make all the dams higher. So they're going to make all the dams higher so that the huge volumes of water can be stored behind the dam and released the way it's being released right now. But because the volume of water is that much bigger, they have to raise the level of Lake Dalrymple, not the 14.6 meters, but 22.6 meters. Now, it's 20.6 meters. You know what 20.6 meters is? That's bloody 60 feet. That's a 7-story building of water going over the spillway. And to hold that, to stop the dam from falling over, they have to put a lot more weight on it. And they're putting weight on the spillway section, 2 meters, and then a fair bit of other weight on the abutment sections. And all the other dams are increasing their height by 8 meters, and they're building another dam to block a sort of a low spot on the south abutment. Another dam there. So that's going to cost them $1.8 billion minimum, and they just generate a little bit more water for the irrigators. So the cost of that water for the irrigators is something like $6,000 a megaliter, and at the moment the irrigators are paying $28 a megaliter for water.
Well, I don't think many of them will survive at that rate. I mean, that's one of the big problems that's happened down in the Murray-Darling Basin. The cost of water's got higher and higher, and the New South Wales government is going to hit them again with another big rise. it really drives people out of business. But I mean, the thing is, one thing you need for development, and that is cheap water and cheap electricity to go
Yeah.
ahead, and we've got to concentrate on that.
So the Burdekin 2 increased in height by 14.6 meters was what was originally envisioned by the designers, and the Blue Valley Dam below, to make it a pumped hydro scheme, will increase the volume of water stored by 5.45 times. So that's considerable more water that's stored, and that will carry through.
But I think the other thing is too, that
Definitely get
stored
some
water.
more droughts. But anyway, so we really need to build a big dam, two big dams to store more water, and also this electricity that we can sell from the pumped hydro and from the run of the river, because all this run of the river water at the moment is just wasted. The stuff that goes down to the irrigators, that doesn't generate any money. Every drop of water that goes down could generate money, and that money will pay for the scheme, including all the upgrades to the dam that you need to do to make it safe.
And the other thing it does, it guarantees towns for future. I mean, with just gravity-fed water supply with the extra height as well,
No,
which, you know,
actually, that doesn't work. The gravity feed it's too far and too rough a terrain and that, and way too expensive. What they're doing at the moment, where they pump from near Clare there, that's the way to go, and it's good. A gravity feed scheme is pretty well like the scheme for what's that big scheme, the Bradley scheme. It
Bradfield.
it doesn't work. Anyway, that's my opinion, and it just doesn't work.
I think one of the other issues too, because there was a review in the Bradfield scheme, it was interesting. It was chaired by Ross Garno, I think Georgina Davis from the Queensland Farmers Federation, and also Professor Alan Dale from JCU. And one of their things was we haven't got enough water in North Queensland to support it because uh, there's it's just not available. But when you delve into the report, it basically their requirements is that between 93 and 97% of all river outflow actually goes through the system. You don't take much out of it. So I suppose if you're restricting yourself to things like 97% of the water has to flow out to sea, it does make it a bit difficult to store, use water.
Yeah, if you put a pumped hydro scheme there, very little water will go out to the ocean, and that's a good thing, because all the irrigations that we're doing is introducing nutrients into the water, and that nutrient, when it escapes to the sea, causes algae blooms and all kinds of problems for the Great Barrier Reef. And at the moment, the water that is held back by the Burdekin Dam has a clarity of something like 3.8, whereas the Bowen River has a clarity of about 7.6. And the reason is it just runs through. It's got no retention where it can settle the silt out. And if we build the Blue Valley Dam, then the silt will settle out, and the plume will be 3.8, and it'll be much better for the reef.
I think the other thing is too, I mean, if you want to sort of control it a bit more, you can add weirs to the system, you know, or along the river to sort of slow that down. But just an interesting sort of observation in regards to, because there is so much runoff, you know, even from the Burdekin catchment behind the dam into the dam. What's the build-up rate of silt in that behind a dam wall? Is it something that sort of becomes a problem after a while, or not?
Like it'll be 50 years, 100 years. Like it'll be a long time, and then by then they will probably be able to vacuum it out, dredge it out, and sell it to the farmers. It'd be good stuff.
Yeah, because it's. Yeah.
But it won't.
Yeah,
It won't plug the dam. It won't plug the dam for a long time.
So with the extension of the wall, like you're saying, the water volume will increase nearly fivefold. The flood area it's not really a problem, because when they planned for the dam, all that flood area was provided for. Like, it's not as though it would be a surprise to anyone that
You're right.
if the dam was built up to that height, because it's already been allowed for. People know that what area is going to be sort of assigned to it, because it's already reserved.
No, if they go with Burdekin Phase 2 and increase the height by 14.6 meters, then all that land is owned by Sunwaters. It is all owned by Sunwaters. If they add another 8 meters to that, to accommodate the extra volume of water that they need to store to keep before it goes over the spillway, to make the spillway handle more volume of water, they need to expropriate about 500 square kilometers of extra land. They're going to flood an extra 500 square kilometers of extra land. And to do that, they need a big environmental impact study, and that will be interesting. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. They are just doing the environmental impact study now on that.
Okay, so it looks pretty sparse out there, according to the map. So we're not going to see any flooded towns or that, are we?
No. It's not, but it's a big area, you know, like that photograph that you got there, the Burdekin River, Lake Dalrymple there is probably 300 square kilometers. Now, when it gets to the 14.6 extra, it's going to be around 700 and something, 780 square kilometers. But
it's not overly noticeable. Or just
it'll go all the way around there. Yeah.
Just fill in some of the gaps. It wouldn't be going out here or anything like that.
And the Blue Valley Dam, at the confluence there, it'll flood back as well, and it'll flood all the way back to the Burdekin Dam, but we're going to do it so that it doesn't get above 91.6 meters, And so it won't flood any roads, or minimal flooding of roads, no houses or anything like that. It's just cattle country, and there's about 4 stations in that area, and some of the land is owned by the city, by the Queensland government anyway. But all the land for phase 2 of the Burdekin Dam that's going to is owned at the moment by the Queensland government, Sunwater.
Yeah, so that doesn't pose a big problem. But the other thing is too, with the Blue Valley Dam, it can be a bit like the Ord River system in regards to they've got Lake Argyle with a dam across, holding the big lake, and they've got an irrigation dam some 55 kilometres. And what they do is they maintain the level of that 55 kilometres, and they also use it to refresh wetlands and that. So it adds a great life potential for wildlife and bird life by having that as a fixed and continuous water system,
Yeah,
rather than running dry.
it won't be as good as what the Ord River schemes with their second one, but we need that dam there to harness the Bowen River and collect the Bowen River water, and we need that for the pumped hydro, because you've got to pump it from one level to another level. And as you say, because the Blue Valley Dam is such a big area, the water level will only go up and down maximum 1 meter. So you can have water sports, cottages, and everything around the lake and it'll be quite pleasant. Not like the Burdekin, not like Lake Dalrymple at the moment, where the level of Lake Dalrymple goes up 14.6 meters. And quite quickly.
Yeah, well, it's interesting in regards to Ord River, because my brother-in-law's got a place up there and he's got a few business interests. If it wasn't for the crocodiles, they'd be happy to do water skiing all the time.
But it's only freshwater crocodiles. There's no saltwater crocodiles there.
No, don't you worry. There's some horrible creatures that get in there, apparently.
Freshwater crocodiles don't bother anybody.
Yeah. Okay. In regards to the return, I mean, one of the biggest problems with getting any sort of project off the ground in regional Queensland is the government sort of puts pretty tall cost benefit reports on it. If say we want to build something like the Linga Dam or some other irrigation project, they're sort of looking at, well, they want a return of capital cost in 30 years, so that puts the price of water up. What sort of, how long would there be a return in regards to this project with the pumped hydro versus just Sunwater plotting on with what they're doing? So what, by the sound of it, what Sunwater is doing is going to be a lot of expenditure, but not generating a lot of return.
Will spend 1.8 billion plus, and they will get peanuts back. There'll be no return. It will cost them just the maintenance of the extra dams will cost them, and they can't charge the water guys. And they said that they won't charge the irrigators. So, and it's a pittance, the amount of water that they save. Like, it's just nothing. Whereas the pumped hydro, we figure that the pumped hydro will generate over $500 million a year in revenue, in electrical revenue, just electrical revenue. So $500 million a year, the government could go out and get bonds and issue bonds at 3.5%, and that will give them, I don't know, something like $14 billion to build the scheme. They don't need that much. We figure it'll cost less than $10 billion to do it, but it will be interesting. They did a lot of work on Pioneer Burdekin, the big scheme. They originally thought it was going to be 12 billion. Then it went up to 18 billion, and then the new government, now with David Christofouli, they figure it's 34 billion, and they cancelled it immediately, and they just cancelled it. Now the problem with those schemes and Snowy is it's all underground. That's 700 meters underground. They got to drill and blast huge chambers, big tunnels, big access tunnels, big bloody tunnels for utility tunnels and that. And working underground is very expensive. It's 5 times more expensive than working above ground. And this Burdekin scheme that we have, the pumped hydro scheme, is all above ground. So there's nothing underground. We won't run into unforeseen conditions. We won't have a tunnel boring machine stuck. You know, none of that stuff. So it's cheaper. And we can't believe that they won't look at it. It's just beyond me that they won't look at it. That, you know, that they should do a business case on our scheme. We've given them cost estimates, everything, and they could vet it and tell us where we're wrong, but they won't. And so I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, it sort of beggars belief what gets the Guernsey, because we had that Hell's Gate proposal, which was a spin-off from the 2020 election when the LNP was running on a bit of thing about Bradfield 2.0, and also Catter's pretty keen on Hell's Gate and that. So that got a Guernsey. I think the Townsville Enterprise has got some money to also have a look at it. So
$6 million. $6 million.
Yeah. So it always surprised me what gets a Guernsey in this instance, you know, how these things happen. And the other thing that's interesting, the Pioneer Burdekin pumped hydro, I mean, that was more or less overnight. The former government committed to that. And initially, like I said, they committed finding $12 billion for it. But the rub was, it was a greenfield site. It was an environmental site in regards to, it's a big piece of rainforest there inland from Mackay. You're going to have not just, I think they end up with three pools of water altogether. I think there's two up above the dam, the holding pond. So it was a big project, but like I say, that sort of got sort of approval, and sort of they created this whole department. I think they got some, they staffed it straight away, and I think the head honcho was on about $500,000 a year. There was probably about 7 or 8 people running around at $300 million, and that just happened overnight. The commitment, because it was renewable, it was going to get us to net zero and all this sort of stuff. But if you look at the Burdekin, what you've got now, you've already got most of the infrastructure there. You've got a big part of the infrastructure. Yes, you have to build the lower dam and do some improvements, but the other big plus is you're not going to get thousands of people displaced like they were going to in the Pioneer and areas outside Mackay. And the other thing, a lot of that land was pristine land. But here you don't have that issue. It's just amazing that these sort of things don't even get a look in for some reason.
You know, the Pioneer Burdekin would have to relocate 350 platypi. Now, I tell you, if you relocate 350 platypi. They are the most territorial animal I know. They will all. There will be 5 left. All the rest of them will die, and the screaming that will they would never get an environmental impact study through relocating 350 platypi. Impossible. Anyway.
But the other thing, but regardless of whether they get to that stage or not, they committed to spend millions and millions just on the plan and creating the department and all that sort of stuff. It just beggars belief that you do that before you do a real proper study.
Yeah, I asked them how they got to decide to do that scheme. And apparently there's a guy called Andrew Blakers at the Australian National University who, for his doctorate thesis, developed a algorithm to select pumped hydro schemes throughout the world. All he had to do was to get the algorithm to go into Google Maps and find where there was a height difference, and he could have a lake up above and a lake down below and reasonably close together, and then hey presto, he's got a pumped hydro scheme. And so he did this, and this pumped hydro scheme popped up. And then I phoned him and I talked to him and I said, listen, did you look at the Burdekin pumped hydro from the Blue Valley Dam to the thing? It's not a high head, but it's a huge volume. And we have run of the river that we're wasting. We're wasting $270 million a year. And he says, no. We're not looking at that. We have this algorithm that looks at high head facilities all around the world. We've got 30,000 locates now for pumped hydro schemes. And I said, wow, okay, but they're all deep underground. You need miles of tunnels. You need huge chambers. You look, I'll send you a video of a pumped hydro scheme that they did in Switzerland, which is very similar to hydro and very similar to what they would have had to do at Burdekin, at the Pioneer Burdekin, and it will just open your eyes. I mean, you'll just shake your head and say, wow.
But this is the problem. I mean, these people aren't engineers. They're just, they've got a bit of skill with computers and build an algorithm, but that doesn't factor in the cost-benefit analysis or even the engineering sort of battle that you have to go through. And this is the thing that concerns me about Chris Foley. They've cancelled the Pioneer Burdekin, but they're still committed to having smaller scale hydros dotted all around the place. So there's 2 problems with that. A, there's going to be small scale, so they might only be half a gigawatt or 300 megs or something like that, megawatts. And the other thing is they'll be in places that haven't got bloody transmission lines anyway, so there's another cost.
But that's the big problem. Seriously, they came and they said, we want to do the Shakespeare scheme. There's a Shakespeare scheme. It's 800 megawatts and it's all ready to go. Everything's there. And then you say, well, where's the transmission lines? Well, there's transmission lines close. No. Those transmission lines are being used 100% by Kidston Pumped Hydro. Kidston Pumped Hydro has used those transmission lines. There is nothing left in them. You have to build an extra 200 kilometers of transmission lines to hook up to something else, and that costs a fortune. So they've canned that scheme too. But you're right. The transmission lines are costly. You know, here for this pump to Burdekin pumps hydro scheme, they committed to the copper string, and we said, "Wow, take the copper string through the power station, and the power station will be the anchor for the copper string, and then you can just tie in to the transmission line that's about 30 kilometers down the road. And, you know, it's all set up. You got to tie into them anyway. Just take the bloody copper string through there, and then all the solar energy that's surplus from the Hughenden area can be absorbed by the Burdekin pumped hydro scheme and then fed out at night to and peaks. Anyway, the copper string people, when I told them that, they were just ecstatic and they climbed right on board. They said, "Wow, who do we talk to get this going? That sounds 100% perfect." So I said, "You get in touch with this guy and talk to him and let me know what happens." Well, I tell you, the government put paid to that pretty quick. It was never heard from them again. I've sent them emails, and it's a good idea until someone decides it isn't.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people out west are pinning their hopes on copper string, but copper string, it's just a transmission line, and obviously at $9 million a kilometre, it's designed to hook into eventually lots of wind and solar projects as well. But they are completely useless unless you have a backup system. And you know,
Absolutely.
and like you say, there's your hydro, the Burdekin hydro could be the anchor to it. Would save a lot of money from instead of batteries or some other sort of system or whatever. Uh, it, I just don't know how these people, you know, think in regards to what's a good idea, what's a bad idea, and how you can have a chance of, you know, putting your case forward. And it's not just for your project; it's heaps of things up here in the north. You know, simple things like the Tully Millstream connection and things like that, or the Nilinga Dam. I mean, it just goes on and on. They find ways just to say no.
Yeah. And they don't argue with you or anything. Look, it would be just great if someone could come to me and say, "We can't do that because of this." And then you could argue with them. But they don't say that at all. They just say, "No, that's it." And
I think that's the big trick with all these men. If they just shut up and don't engage, there's nothing you can do about it. If there's dialogue, if there's dialogue, you know, obviously then becomes correspondence, records of conversations, all those sort of things, and it's a problem for them down the road. So the best idea is just don't engage, you know, just courteously, oh, thanks very much for your inquiry, and then that's the end of it. So they don't have any paper trail that they're dealing with or anything like that. So
yeah,
it is a problem for all regional Queensland when it comes to their project. It seems to be a normal standard operating procedure for them, as far as the government goes, and it doesn't matter who's in power.
you're right. You are right. It is hard to get anyone to listen. And you may have a whole bunch of engineers behind you, and they all think it's a good idea. And I mean, everyone has opinions. This is a little bit better than that, and that's a little bit better than that. But the scheme itself is a good scheme, and it's cheap compared to the big tunnels and chambers. Oh, anyway,
I think also there's been a group in Townsville I've been involved with that's at a few stages and that we're just trying to, you know, get the stage two done, you know, without, you know, as it was originally planned because it should have been done, you know, it should have been started, you know, decades ago, but it hasn't. And I think they've been stonewalled as well in regards to just trying to get the government to commit to go to at least the full stage 2. So I see where you're running into similar problems in regards to, you know, if you can't engage them with something that's been on the drawing board since the 1980s, it's pretty hard to get them to engage with something a bit more harder for them to comprehend, if you put it nicely.
Yeah, and the equipment is better, the engineering is better, the understanding is better, and so it'll be a lot better scheme than was envisioned by Snowy, but it's basically the same system. Yeah.
Okay, we've gone over an hour. We'll just wind it up there. Is there any sort of group or people you're talking to within council and around the area that's sort of interested in furthering this development, or any method we can help go forward?
We have two groups. We have a group of engineers, and we have a group of politicians, and both groups are banging their heads against the wall, and you know that they're all committed and they all think it's a wonderful idea. And anyway, that's the way it goes.
But here's the rub. We've just had an election, right? Back in November last year. And we've now got a situation where we've gone from 11 ALP members in Central and North Queensland to now, and only 4 LMPs. We've gone to the situation where we have now 14 LMP members in Central and North Queensland. We've got Cook, Barron River, Cairns, no, not Cairns, Mulgrave. You've got the 3 Townsville seats. The Cata parties, they're all for North Queensland development, they're on board. You've got Dale Last in the Burdekin, you've got your whole Keppel, Marani, they hold Rockhampton, they hold Mackay as well, they hold Collide, Whitsundays, so there's 14. Now, that's an interesting scenario. You now got a situation where you've got 14 LMP members of Parliament from Central and North Queensland who want lots of things developed and, you know, money spent on roads and all, and they're 14 of 52. So they are a fairly big size block. If they ever got sorted out and someone could, you know, pen the chickens or herd the cats, as they say, they might have a chance of sort of, you know, holding this government sort of, well, you want to spend, you know, $100 million, you know, $50 billion on the Olympics. Well, how about throwing $10 billion to Central and North Queensland for projects? So maybe we can have a bit of blackmail going on there, because it's an unusual situation. When if you look at when Newman won in 2012. He had 78 members of Parliament, LNP members of Parliament, and 12 in Central North Queensland. So they were only 12 of 78. But now our politicians, our representatives, in the LNP, are 14 of 52. That is a huge block to sort of hold sway over, you know, having those decisions made to ensure that, you know, Central and North Queensland gets something out of this term of government.
Like you say, it's like herding cats. It won't happen.
You can always dream. You know, they might figure that if they want to survive the next election, they better deliver something for us. So rather than just be nodding parrots for Brisbane.
What we're telling them, Bill, is do the business case, and it pays for itself, the scheme. It doesn't take any money out of the government. All they got to do is get a bond and get a bond for this dam, and this dam will generate the money, and it'll pay, the bond will build it, and it'll generate a return and pay the bond back. Anyway.
Well, the interesting thing is most governments like studies because it holds off actually committing to something, but it gives them a bit of media coverage, and it looks as though they're doing something for the people. So maybe that's the angle to play. Do the study, and it looks like you are looking after Central and North Queensland and the people of the region. So maybe that's got it. Maybe you need maybe you need a good salesman or something like that, rather than an engineer. Salesman,
Yeah.
you just need a salesman.
The politicians tell me, Dick, you're arguing the wrong argument. You got to talk. You got to talk like a politician, and I'm definitely not a politician.
Okay then. Okay, look, I'd like to thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. I wish you all the best for your endeavours to move forward with this, or at least encourage some interest either from our local politicians or a wider community to get something over the line, because the only way things are going to get better is if we can grow the pie. And projects like this have the capability of growing the pie and providing a basis for wealth creation rather than just expending money.
Yeah. I say at the end of most of my letters, the Burdekin is the jewel of Queensland's rivers. We got to control it, harness it, and it'll make us proud.
Yeah, and we need to give it that crown on top.
That's Trump's.
Okay, hey, Dick, thanks very much for your time tonight. If you just hold there, I'll introduce next week's show and just have a little chat off air.
Okay.
Thanks very much. If you enjoyed tonight's show, please like, share, and subscribe to our Facebook page. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Join me next week. I'll be talking to Jared Holland from the Page Institute. And we'll be discussing a few things in regards to the upcoming election and some of the main emphasis on electricity and debt. So please join me again next week. Thank you.